Well, here we are at the last week of August. Can you believe it? We're going to hit the last third of the year here of 2024. It's blazed by this year. You always hear of expressions of time moving fast, but it does seem that way, doesn't it? We'll talk about a couple things this week astrologically, and I'll end with a couple thoughts that I have. Venus in Virgo has been doing its very interesting detailed way of working, and that's what Virgo does. It looks for the details. It needs to label things, define things, categorize these things, separate things, put them back together. It's been doing this through the relationship money planet Venus here for weeks now. And when we get into less than 24 hours, I'm making this video. I'm making this here on Monday afternoon, and when we get into Tuesday on the 27th, we have Venus will make a harmonious aspect, a harmonious connection with the planet Uranus in Taurus. It's called a trine, and Uranus brings surprises, things out of the blue, other ways of looking at things, something progressive and new, changes and switch ups. And it does this in a positive way with Venus and Virgo. They're both planets, Venus and Uranus, are in earth signs. So we're going to look through the earthly vessels and pleasures, Venus, to look for new ways of doing this, that eventually, that these switch-ups and changes that Uranus brings wants to find harmony through Venus in Virgo. Now, let's remember this. Venus in Virgo, the sign Virgo, is ruled by the planet Mercury. And if you haven't heard this already, you've known for the last 3 weeks that Mercury's been retrograde. And it started in Virgo and went all the way to 4 degrees, stopped, went retrograde, and went all the way back into Leo where it is now. And it has basically been serving up a story or two for the last 3 weeks. And I actually think this goes back to even 2 weeks before. So the last 5 weeks, Mercury has been the main player, I would say, in all of astrology. Everything's been back to Mercury. So here, with this harmonious trine that Venus has to Uranus, something new is coming in through earthly pleasures, through earthly ways of doing things, through the herbs that Venus and Virgo puts in the metaphorical garden. The service that Venus and Virgo likes to do, to serve relationships, to serve harmonious sensual needs. Don't underestimate a Venus and Virgo, by the way, of what they can do in relationships. You always hear about Venus and Leo or in other signs, like the dark, brooding, intense, private Venus and Scorpio. But Venus and Virgo has a deep purpose, and it's to cleanse and purify in the end. And they've been doing that and looking and engaging in relationships through that. Mercury, being retrograde, has been throwing a twist in all this. But anyway, Venus trine Uranus, 12:33 a.m. on August 27th. And when we get into the next day, it's less than a day on the 28th. Venus makes another aspect and connection. This time it's on Venus here. On the opposite end is Neptune in Pisces. And now we have the confusion come in. After the electric relationship with Uranus, confusion, haziness, fantasy, fog, Neptune puts that over and onto Venus in Virgo, and this can create deception after deception. It can be confusing. What just happened with Uranus all of a sudden turns into something that has no boundaries and at times no definition. And I think it's very important for Venus and Virgo to have definition, to name and label things. And it's been learning lessons in all this during the retrograde with Mercury, right? So, but here, deception could be with resources, cash, relating, could be the way you like to to provide your image to the world. All of these things, Neptune throws a twist on. And that happens on 1:24 p.m. on the 28th. After the surprise of Uranus, just be careful what Neptune can do and how the trickiness and how the confusion can come across. But it's within less than an hour that Mercury, who's been retrograde here for 3 weeks, stations forward, which means it stops going backwards and starts to move forward very slowly. I'm going to add here. But now we have some trickiness to all of this. So I'm mentioning confusion and haziness with Neptune over Venus here. But then you have Mercury, who's like still rules that Mercury and Venus and Virgo, stationing out of retrograde. And you remember when you follow Mercury retrogrades, the beginning, middle, but especially the end point, this is where the trickiness, the confusion can happen, the missent email, the miscommunication, right? Or it could be the aha moments that come out of the blue too. All of a sudden, boom, it's like everything you've been weighing out in your mind or wherever Leo and Virgo are in your chart, all of a sudden starts to show a sense of clarity, but still it's not quite moving on all cylinders. So you can see the day we're leading to on Wednesday, where it could be somewhat shaky or confusing, and then Mercury's playing a game here, right? So that happens at 2:13 p.m. Pacific. The Trickster is in full force. When we get into the 29th, which is the Thursday, 6:22 a.m., Venus leaves Virgo and goes right into Libra. And then we have another shift here, right? Venus comes into one of her homes. One of them's in Taurus. This one is in Libra, where she flourishes. And I think is feeling released from the inward analyzation that Venus and Virgo can do, or the analyzation Venus can do in anything relating or dealing with resources and money. And it gets into a place where it deals with a lot more comfort, where it doesn't feel like it has to analyze per se or solve the problem. So I think there's a little bit of release here for Venus. And it's within less than an hour or two on Thursday that Venus in Libra then makes a harmonious trine aspect with Pluto and Aquarius. And now everything that Venus has been through, and I'm going to say here for the last week, everything Venus has been through is kind of brought into a different space. And I think there's revelations here. And I think Pluto does bring revelations or things from underneath or things that have been waiting behind the scenes. And it does this in a great connective way with Venus and Libra. Pluto's detailed and dialed here. And the depth that Pluto brings, right? When one connects with that kind of depth and detail, Pluto empowers. So remember this. And it's happening in an objective, separate way because Pluto is in Aquarius, air sign. Venus is in Libra, air sign. They have a tendency to take an objective approach and step out. Both signs have to deal with the mind, along with Gemini here. They deal with the mind and how we process that and how we balance it. But they're also deals with sociability in general too. All the earth signs do this, from Gemini, Libra to Aquarius. There's a social component to all of this. And so we have Mars and Gemini in the sky, Jupiter in Gemini. All of a sudden Venus is in Libra and Pluto's in Aquarius for not too long. And so we have this kind of air, more of an air pocket that opens up, and Pluto in Aquarius brings that depth and detail and revelations to Venus and Libra, and they dig the harmony with each other. I could stop right here and it could say, hey, this is a Venus week, and it is, right? But I also think it's truly a Mercury week too, because of what Mercury's doing, starting to move forward. And on Saturday, or when we get to September 1st, the weekend, basically, Moon enters Leo, right? And Moon in Leo is going to connect with freshly moving forward Mercury in Leo. So we have a very expressive weekend happening. Then all of a sudden, what is happening from underneath is when we get to the first, second for those in the southern hemisphere, the planet Uranus in Taurus, which has been at 27 degrees for a while. Now remember, several weeks ago, the full moon that happened in Aquarius was at 27 degrees. And Uranus was squaring that, creating a caustic relationship with the sun and moon, right? So now Uranus stops to go backwards slowly for months here. And it's been moving forward for almost 7 months now. So if you look to the Taurus part of your chart, and there's a lot that's happened there this year, right? We had Jupiter and Taurus earlier in the year make a conjunction with Uranus. We had the infamous here this summer, not too long ago, we had the infamous Mars and Taurus connecting with Uranus. We had major world events happen there. And here now it stops, and it needs to go review over these last 7 months. And I think it's an important place. And then it's the same day that Pluto in Aquarius, and Pluto's been retrograde now for a little bit, leaves Aquarius and enters back into Capricorn at 29 degrees for a couple months here. If I were to sum up this week, it's a gateway. And it's a gateway that's revealed. And it can be confusing because some of it has to go with going backwards. And a lot of it has to do with moving forwards. Planet like Venus going into another sign. Mercury moving forward. Then there's Uranus going backwards. Then there's Pluto going backwards back into another sign. How could this be a gateway? It is. Because sometimes, or a lot of times in life, sometimes a door just opens and you walk through it. But usually the storylines are stories and cycles overlapping on each other. And so we are moving forward here. And I think after the last 5 weeks with the Mercury retrograde and everything that's been happening, I think clarity starts to come of what to do through September. And the secret planet on this video that will guide you into September is the planet Mercury. That's my take on it. Why? Because Mercury now moving forward comes through Leo, makes several aspects again to like Uranus, but then enters in Virgo. And for all of September, Mercury will start moving fast, delivering the true messages that were being figured out and pieced out during the retrograde. And now in September, Mercury will make aspects to many planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, a ton of them. So basically, messages are finally getting delivered. If you've been feeling like it's the time to do it, or you've kind of tried to balance everything out and take things from different places and piece them out, put them back together again during this retrograde, September's the time you walk through the gateway. And regardless of the politics and the storylines, the beautiful thing about Mercury, Hermes, the messenger of the gods, its ability to shift, its ability to mutate, but more than anything, its swiftness and clarity. And when things do need to change, Mercury brings it swiftly, critically, and with a bit of fun at times. If you can embrace the trickster quality in the changes that you know you need to make, September's the month to do it. There's an eclipses that happens there. There's a bunch of stuff. But you know me. Anybody watching this channel knows that I love the trickster. And if you can utilize it, you get things done. If you're new, you found yourself here, you like me ranting here, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. Hit all when you hit the bell. Why? Because I'm wild, spontaneous, and free. And I do live streams out of the blue, so you'll get a notification. On a deeper level, we're coming out of these seasons of summer in the northern hemisphere, winter in the southern hemisphere. Hope I got that right. The last third of the year, changes are coming. Walk through the gate proudly. Recognize the gate that's opening. And be you. Until next time, I'll see you on the next video.